Hello and welcome to the UNIKLE Debate Youth Cup 2021. Thank you to all the lecturers, students, and overall supporters for being here today. My name is Nurhamiza binti Takiuddin and I will be your chairperson and timekeeper for this session. Today's session will be adjudicated by Farhan, Akila, and also Anis. We are going to start with the third round of preliminary rounds by reading the motion. The motion for this debate is: in a developing nation, the House prefer a technocratic government over a democracy. The members of the government side representing Unica Al-Midi are Nabil as the Prime Minister, Anissa as the Deputy Prime Minister, Hana as the government whip. The reply speech from the government side will be given by, Nabil, right? Nabil will be given the reply speech. Anissa, all right. And the members from the opposition side representing Unica MFI are Nabila as the leader of opposition, Shahbaz as the deputy leader of opposition, Natasha as the opposition whip. The reply speech from the government side will be given by
Shabas will take it.
All right, thank you. Before we begin, I will briefly explain the rules. Each of the main speeches is 7 minutes long. The first and last minute of each of these speeches is known as protected time, which means that no points of information or POI must be asked by the opposing bench. As the timekeeper, I will mark the opening and closing of protected time with a single blank, once at 1 minute and a second time at 6 minutes. I will also indicate that a speaker's time is up with a double clap. If a speaker continues for a further 15 seconds, the indicator will start with a triple clap. And thereafter continuously until the speaker stops. The reply speeches are 4 minutes long and are entirely protected from POIs. The indicator for the reply speech will start as single bank at 3rd minute, double bank at 4th minute. If the speaker continues for a further 15 seconds, the indicator will start with a triple bank and thereafter continuously until the speaker stops. Could I also politely ask the phones to be switched off for the duration of each debate? If you wish to use your phone, please mute your mic and switch off your video to respect ongoing session. Participants, you will have 10 minutes grace period if you are disconnected. Please continue your speech during that period. We will move on to the next speaker if you fail to reconnect after the grace period. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming the first speaker of the debate, the Prime Minister, to the floor to open the debate.
Okay, can I have a few seconds to...
Yep, sure.
Okay. Okay, I'll start my speech in a bit. Ladies and gentlemen, Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world where developing nations actually prioritize people who have the ability to persuade others regardless of their skills, rather than technocrats that actually have the skills to lead in their certain industry. So, first of all, me and my team as the government prefers a technocratic government over a democracy. So first of all, let me define this motion. What we mean by a developing nation, it is a country that isn't a third world country, but isn't a first world country either. It's in between, where the country is developing to become a developed country, technology-wise and so on. So let me give you examples of developing countries. Malaysia is a developing country. Indonesia is a developing country. Greece is also a developing country. Next is technocratic government. What is a technocratic government? Technocratic government is a government system in which the decision maker are selected on the basis of their expertise in a given area of responsibility. So, for example, if there was a person, a doctor, let's say, a doctor can only be picked under the medical Ministry of Health, I mean, and scientists can be only picked under the Ministry of Science, rather than a democracy system. So a democracy system is where the citizens are able to pick their political leaders, regardless of their skills. So since we've got the definition out of the way, first of all, next, I would like to give you the stakeholders of this debate. So first of all, the government will be affected by this change of government because it's a change of the government system. And also, the second stakeholders are other countries. People will look at the countries that are doing technocratic government, technocratic system, and will give their own thoughts on that. So now moving on, mechanism. How are we going to ensure a technocratic government in a country? First of all, we would like to put more strict requirements. So, for example, if you want to apply for the Ministry of Health, you would have to have, let's say, 25 years of experience in doctorism, or like anything related to medical or health and so on. If you want to become a financial minister, you would have to have enough experience, let's say just as the same as the other one, 25 years in financial industry. So we're not saying that, because he's skilled, if he doesn't have the experience, he will not be eligible to be part of the government. So next, how will we pick, if like a lot of people are required, have these requirements and are trying to become that minister? How will we pick? The previous cabinet, the government before, will be able to pick these, not citizens, because the previous government will listen to their campaigns and so on and pick from there. If in a non-monetary mind. So moving on to our stance. What is our stance? Why do we need a technocratic government? First of all, this is our stance. The big why is that we need a government that knows what they're doing. What do I mean by this? So, like for example, if you have the ability to just persuade people, and people are eat that persuasion, then but their skills are non-existent. Not really non-existent, but it's really small compared to other people who have the skills. So, for example, if you're a good leader, but you don't have the skills to become a health minister, then it's just going to bring the country to ruins, because you don't have the skills you don't even know what you're talking about. Of course, you could ask for advisors, but but being the leader itself, knowing your choices, brings a good country. So, so for example, okay, I'll move on to my argument first. What is my first argument? My first argument is that the efficiency of having of the government will increase. Why? Because you're handling just your own industry, your own ministry. Like as I said before, if you want to be the Minister of Health, you'd have to have enough experience. So let's compare this to a democratic industry. Okay, a real example, yeah. Taqiyuddin, he was the minister of a GLC, and what happened was that there was a clash between two LRT trains. What he did was he didn't give very good explanation on that. What he did instead was make a joke about it, saying that those two trains were kissing one another. Does this reflect a good government? Reflects a good minister? Of course not. So if you were to take a person who is, let's say, an engineer and automotive engineer and so on trains and so on, or railway engineer, and he was the minister of this transport, the most logical thing he would do is check it out, make sure that the whole thing is okay, and of course he knows what he's doing. He will know what to do. He will either repair, add more things to the LRT to make it better, and surely make the whole transport system better. I mean, come on. So yeah, this is why a technocratic government is much more better than a democratic government, and I have never been prouder to propose.
Thank you for that speech. Now, please welcome the first speaker of the opposition, the leader of opposition, to open the case for their side.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Is it okay if I don't open the camera because I want to ensure the line is smooth?
Yep, it's okay.
Okay. Bismillah. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe that the voices of the people matters, and that is why we reject the idea of solely taking people in the governmental offices by the technocratic techniques rather than we take a democracy approach. First, I would like to rebut some points that have been given by the Prime Minister. He said we are in a developing country, but because we are in a developing country, so we need to hire people who has the right skills. Okay, I agree with it. Of course, we need people who has the right skill, but normally in a developing country, we don't have enough resources. Our resources aren't stabilized yet. We are in a country that is not stabilized yet. And what we need from that is a leader who is well connected, who is well resourced from other countries. So when we talk about technocrats, of course they are skilled, but they don't have the right resources to seek help from other countries. Whereas people who are able to lead, who is inherently a leader from the get-go, they are able to get these resources from other countries because they diplomatize better with other countries. So that is how in a developing country itself, even though people that is produced from that country has more people who is skilled in STEM aspect, but that doesn't necessarily means that a leader who doesn't have a background in STEM cannot lead, because they are actually more well-rounded if we consider than the technocrats. Of course, you also said that there was a problem with Taqiyuddin, right? I agree with you that he was a very not an eligible leader. When he gave the speech, he didn't know what he talked about, but that is why we have democracy. So you completely disregard that Taqiyuddin was toppled down in the name of democracy itself. So we believe it's not that we want to favor people who are only popular in the community. So if Najib was like popular, and that is the only credentials that we'll take, he will still be a minister until now, right? So that is why we take into account the eligibility in the terms of their skills, and they have to be more well-rounded, but not necessarily knowing all the facts and numbers and everything, the mathematical aspect, the scientific aspect. They don't need to know like every anatomy of the body to be a health minister. They should only have some surfaces level skills, but they can learn faster. So this surfaces level skill will enable them to learn it, but they can also be flexible in the positions, because their main in governmental office, their main roles is to lead, to do the more about the policies, to tackle the policies that is from later I will take. Their works is more about the policy and their ability to relate with the community. And then other than that, the other thing that has been said is a person's capability to lead should be within their own skills. Yeah, that's true. But as I said just now, it is important for people to choose their leaders. So that is why the democratic comes from. And democratic probably prefers figures who are more well versed, but probably they are not that skilled. But that is where our model should in our sense, in our world, we would choose a leader that is not only is being able to converse well with people, who has a well structured ties with other countries, but they also have a surfaces level skills. They don't need to be professional experts in order to increase our country standard, especially in a developing country itself. And other than that, I'll take probably at the 5th minute. My arguments is okay. So when you talk about our arguments, the first arguments is we give the rights to people to choose their preferred leaders. We understand there's a bit of unfairness that might arise, but we want there is something that is internal that can be tackled down from inside. But how do you define a leader? You define a leader who is someone who has a spine, right? Who is well adversed with the community, and let's say, and you want a figure who is influential enough to change the structure as a whole, let's say over GLC companies, or the country itself at large. Because let's say if a person is more popular, they are able to have more ties. Let's say for if a person wants to restructure some weaknesses in a GLC company in Malaysia, they could directly contact people who is more from Tokyo, who has more resources. Of course, technocrats are like-minded, and they are well conversed in their knowledges, but they are not able to have more resources in that sense, right? So that is why I think it is important to choose people in the terms of democracy. And also, with these influential figures that is elected in the government, that will in return will make a
Right.
huge impact. Okay.
So earlier you said technocratic government are not flexible, right? What makes you think that? And also, you said that we don't need experts to become a government. Why do you think that we can't have experts become the minister and so on? Wouldn't that just cause the nation to fall down?
Okay, I understand your point, but don't you think that a professional expert shouldn't be their end goal, and they are not only highly looked upon if they are in a governmental offices, their opinions still can be taken. That is why we reaffirm our motion, which is we would always refer back to democracy. There are external experiences and external opinions that can be taken even though we are from the government. We need to take account of other people. So in the other side of the fence, probably they would take technocrats in a heavier weight other than democracy. What will happen from that? If there is a leader who is very well skilled, like say Adi Putra, let's say he's big now, okay, so he's good in mathematics, and then suddenly we hire him as a minister. He doesn't has the right skill to that, but in the names of the technocrats, we are not able to topple down these leaders in the name of democracy, because we put heavy weight in their skills and their knowledges, their deep knowledges, rather than their how impactful and influential they are in the community. With that, I would like to oppose. Thank you.
I would like to thank the speaker for the speech and welcome the second speaker of the government, the Deputy Prime Minister, to continue the case for their side.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, starting my speech in... Wait. Okay, starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know why the opposition side today keeps on praising these ministers, especially in our country, when all they've done is cause burdens after burdens, more burdens. in our country. They are the reason why this country is so messed up. So when the one of the opposition said something about said something about leader is well connected, how are you sure that these expert candidates are not well connected as well? And with that being said, when these experts are chosen to be the candidate for in a technocratic government, they have more connections that is related to their position, to their field, and not as a whole. And that is why my prime minister today has already proposed a motion where we choose a candidate based on the specification of the skills that they will hold in the position, not as a whole. Not as a whole. Or you have this, you have that, you can be that, you can be a candidate. No, it's based on the position that they hold in the future. So when these experts are chosen in a technocratic government, they will have sorry, they have connections that are more skillful, and they can rely on them if they have any questions that is actually related to the position that they are holding. Second of all, when the opposition side said something about well-versed in speaking, have you seen the way our ministers speak in the parliament? And these are all ministers that are like 50 to 60 years old. Have you seen the way they speak? They give childish jokes, make childish sounds to each other, and if they see someone that they don't like, who practically threatens them and their position, they're gonna like invalidate them and whatever he's saying, like Syed Saddiq, for example. So if these old people are the future of our generation, then I'm very concerned. And we've already tried a democratic government for years. So, and it failed. We are now one of the highest corrupted country in Asia. So that says something. So why not we like open our minds for a bit, be open-minded, and be open to the idea of a technocratic government? Because obviously a democratic government has failed us tremendously. So moving on to my first argument, why we should go with today's motion is because it is a needed change, ladies and gentlemen. So let's look at our democratic government right now. So do you know that the requirements to become one of the candidates is that you need to be like 21 years old above, Malaysian citizen, and you have to pay like a certain amount of money, and you can be a candidate as long as you can pay. Basically saying if you're rich, you can be a candidate. That's all. So that's really like concerning. So, and especially when these people who are candidates are about to be our future holders of positions that are important. So that is why if we were to go with today's motion, we can actually have ministers who are actually skillful and experts in that field or in that industry. So if anything happens, if an emergency happens, they actually know what they're talking about, instead of like passing it on to the next guy. Oh, you know what, just do this, just do that. They can actually solve the problem. And when we say something about well skilled, it's not just on papers, because today's ministers, they're all on papers. If you have a PhD, if you have a master's, you can be a minister. That's not it. The way we say it is well skilled is you're skillful in that industry, you're skillful in the other things as well. You can manage this, you have administration, you have leadership, you know the history of our country, you have political skills. That's important. And even if you have these skills but you cannot portray it in real life, that's a problem as well. So that's why we have to really know who we choose, and we really need to make sure that these candidates can actually portray these skills in real life and not just have it on paper. We need to see. That's why we really need to carefully choose the people that we elect in the people that are going to be in a technocratic government. So moving on to my second argument is reduce voting bias. So okay, let's talk about Undi 18 something for a minute. I agree with what with the agenda that they want to go with, and I agree where they're coming from. But let's be realistic. If we were to go with Undi 18 and voting as a whole, if a 18-year-old who is well educated, who has knowledge in this and that, the likeliness of him to vote, to choose rightly would be high, because he is well educated. But have you considered about the 18 years old who are not as educated as this guy, who does not come from a good family, and is not exposed to things like politics, like this and that. And for that reason, that guy will end up voting for the wrong reasons, and he will vote wrongly, ladies and gentlemen. And that is why bias happens. So I'm not saying Undi 18 is wrong, no, but there's a consequence that happens when we vote. Okay, so moving on, if we were to go with our motion, the lineups are going to be more efficient, like my prime minister has said. It's because it consists of experts who actually know what they're doing, who know what they're talking, who actually know what they're talking about instead of passing it, like I said just now. So like in case of emergency, like the Takyudin guy, he knows what to do. He knows how to handle the press. He knows how to talk to the people instead of being racist to a Chinese reporter. That's not it, ladies and gentlemen. So if and when we sorry, so for people, when we rely on voting, a lot of people will vote for the wrong reasons, and a lot of times these people can be bought by the ministers. There was one case when a politician in Malaysia, a politician, like this was during election lah. He was going around in the pasar malam, and he went to stalls after stalls, and people were like making a big issue, like, oh my god, there's a politician here, and he handed off 50 ringgit to everyone, like, here you go, here you go, here you go, just as something like, oh, you should choose me because I give you 50 ringgit. And at the end, that person who received the 50 ringgit will end up choosing that guy because he got the 50 ringgit for the wrong reasons. They did not think of the long run of how he will be politically. They do not think of that reasons, because especially this is really concerning, especially when he hands off to people who are really in need of money in the low level income families. That's really concerning. So with that being said, if we were to go with the technocratic government, we can actually like know these people, even though we're not voting them, we're not choosing them, but these people who will be our ministers know what they're doing, know how to handle a government, know how to handle a nation, instead of just focusing on them. And with that being said, I've never been prouder to go with this motion. Thank you.
I would like to thank the speaker for the remarks and welcome to the second speaker of the opposition, the deputy leader of opposition, to continue the debate for their side.
Can you guys see me? Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right. Okay. So I guess I'll just begin my debate right now. So I'd like to present a few rebuttals that I noticed that I just wanted to mention. And great job, Anissa, for like mentioning some of these things. But I just wanted to have these things because I mentioned these things because I noticed a few points. You mentioned something like we see people suffering right now due to the decisions that these policymakers take today. But like, what if we were to look at it from a different angle and mention like, what if this was like the least collateral, like the decision that provided the least amount of collateral? Like, what if there were other decisions that were far worse on paper, and like collateral is completely inevitable and it's going to happen, so why not just take a decision that has the least amount of destruction that comes in along with it? A few things I want to mention. Another one was like, leaders are leaders well connected? Yes, actually leaders are well connected with other leaders and other policymakers because they have influence over field experts. Field experts are well connected with other field experts, but they don't necessarily hold positions of power. And you talked about how today's ministers joke around, and I won't disagree with you there. Like, they 100% joke around, but like, jokes don't necessarily translate to no action being taken. You know, it's probably an action that's different from what you were probably thinking of. And the last point I want to mention was like corruption. And you mentioned like how corruption takes place today. Corruption is inevitable at this point. Like, I won't sit here, talk to you and mention like how going the route of democracy would mean a corruption-free state. Logical evidence, it's happening today. But how can you also say that it won't
POI?
happen with the upcoming statement? Can I reserve the PIs for like the 5-minute mark, maybe? Because I just want to have a few points. All right, thank you. So I'll just mention a few things. Like now I want to talk about a few arguments. And the whole theme that we're sticking to is about like the value and quality of the decision that is being taken. So you talk about how, especially the prime minister mentioned, like how the decision isn't necessarily the best unless it was provided by the field expert. But here's the thing. Field experts are consulted anyways. It's not going to change anything. It's not like following a conventional government democracy neglects the opinions of like these field experts, we still consult them. Evidence that you need, board meetings. That's what board meetings are for. People don't just sit around having tea, eating their biscuits, and just make decisions on the whim. They consult with field experts because they're not necessarily the best to make that decision, you know and if you really look at the argument this way, if field experts are only considered, the only thing it changes is the hierarchy at which the decision is being taken. It's just the organization is flattened a bit, you know and second of all, another a very high point is that these field experts are not necessarily the best to make the decision, because they're only going to make decisions based on the field related policy. They only know how to take policies that benefit the field itself, because that's what they're experts in. They don't necessarily have the best knowledge in terms of like the the funding conditions, the economic conditions, the communal agreements amongst the society, if this decision is the best to take. What about the international governing policies? What about the patterns that govern how these policies need to be taken? Border relations with other countries, and this leads me to the next high point, is that just like to be a doctor or an engineer, you need to be trained to be a leader in the first place. You need to be an expert at leading. You need to be trained to make tough decisions in the heat of the moment. Be one that someone who inspires people to take action rather than just listen to instructions being fed and have no idea on what to do. And the way you do this, like how do you value this? Well, think about it this way. Normal day leaders, and it goes back to the theme of the quality of the decision, is that when a leader consults things like funding, the society decisions, the international policies, they have viewed and consulted all aspects before they make a decision. Whereas the field expert is only going to focus on making a decision that's best related that best aligns with the field, but might completely ignore other aspects that govern these decisions in the first place. An example would be like funding the development of the coronavirus vaccines. Like, yes, high funding is required, but if a field expert if a health minister was appointed, he wouldn't consider from a field expert, he wouldn't necessarily be considering points like the economy of the condition of people, like how and the time it takes to develop this vaccine, and like what are other things that value it? How do you push people to develop it quicker? It's not just about developing; it's developing it at the best efficiency provided. And then you need to consider things like the logical inputs that like a leader provides. Like, when he considers everything, he considers all the logical inputs to receive the most optimum output. It's not necessarily the best output, because that's not possible, but it's the most optimum one, the one with the least amount of collateral, the one with the best outcome. And you mentioned about like very high good positions, and I agree with that. Like the PM mentioned a very good point, like about how when we want a doctor, like in a medical field, you want an expert in a medical field to consult and make decisions for you. But think about it from the like a more conservative topic. What about war? Would you rather have a soldier that has been bred to sort of suppress human empathy and toughen their hearts to like human relativity, to sort of make the decision? Most likely the decision is going to be to go to war and come out on top with like survive the friction that has come in? Or would you rather have a leader, an expert who considers all points and decides to sort of take a route that doesn't involve a war in the first place? This is where consulting comes in. It's not like the opinion of the soldier or the head expert at like the war or like a military force is not is he's not it's not like he's not going to be consulted, but he is not necessarily the best decision maker out there. All the decisions are provided in those board meetings that we talked about. So a few things I just want to talk about, like again with the model. I express those things anyways, which is like my opposition leader, primary opposition leader mentioned like how the reason why we have the ability to overthrow someone who, yes, acknowledging is a product of the democratic government conditions that are established today, but we still have the ability to overthrow them. Think about it this way. What if a field expert was appointed and he is not necessarily the best at it? How would you have the ability to overthrow them? So these are just my points that I wanted to mention, and thank you so much.
Now let us welcome the government whip to summarize the debate for the government side.
May I start?
Yep, you may start.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, have you heard? So the LO said it will be better if we have leaders that are well connected. So are you saying if we are about to take this one famous surgeon as the health minister, and he or she wouldn't know who to contact, who to ask, people wouldn't know him because he's not popular from your point of view? You do know, right, that good surgeons will know another good surgeons. Great surgeon will know another great surgeons. Great, even like great prime minister knows another great prime minister. That's how the world works. If we're talking about leader is basically a generally. I can be the leader of this group. You can be the leader of this group. There's like so many. It's not specifically. If we talk about surgeons, for example, health minister, we're looking for surgeons. Surgeons. Okay, we need a surgeon. Okay, these surgeons know that surgeon. So if we, for example, we have the, like we said, we had this case about the baby. You remember the baby with the heart problem? So that baby, if we don't have the good surgeon who knows the surgeon in UK, would we be able to help her? No, we wouldn't. Did our leader do anything about it? No, they didn't. So this is the initiative that this technocrat can do more than a normal leader. So which is why I would like to say, like what my PM have said, the mechanism is to be stricter according to the field, which means, for example, like he said, like stricter according to the field. It doesn't mean that I'm doing this generally. Everyone have to have 25 years of experience. No, it means that you have to be specific. If you're a surgeon, okay, what surgeon? You have to do MBBS. You have to have master. You have to do this surgeon. You have to have 10 years of this or that. That's how we are going to have the technocrats. We are not just picking like cherries, random things. No, we are picking the creme de la creme, the best among the best. That's one thing. And then the opposition side keeps talking about how bad politicians are toppled down by democracy. I can't even remember the last time we voted or democracy were there. If these are bound to happen, anyways, it's better for us to get those with expertise. Where are we getting those? Some rich man with 10,000 ringgit who can just like be a candidate. Why would we choose that over this one school surgeon as health minister or this one cool accountant? Why would we do that? And then you do know, right? These people, these technocrats are basically, they will be leading us. Okay, they will be called as a leader as well, but a different one because they know what they can do. And also, for example, like my PM and DPM have already told you guys about the GLC president. That's one of the main highlight. Okay, so basically can you imagine? The only thing he can explain was that kissing. People need the explanation. Why? Even you guys in democracy, democracy, you need to choose. It's okay. When you choose, that person become a leader. The leader basically owes the people for what he or she has. Do you think the democracy was done for them to be up there and have fun? No, they were supposed to explain, help. And then we talk about give money and all by my DPM, and she said about how some leader just give money. Can you imagine? Like you actually will vote for some dude who are willing to help you. Do you think those people with experience, the technocrats won't help you? Like they will actually sit in their room and just look at you? No, they know more. They know the suffer. They know what's going on. They weren't born in a silver spoon. You know how I'm not sure if you heard about this, but people who are like, for example, like GLC president or even a minister, they come from the background who they've been in this circle for decades. It means that my dad giving it to your dad giving to this, that, and like I got to be this president and then this president, and then suddenly I'm a minister. Do you think that's fair? Even with democracy, that is still not fair if you're talking about fair. No, it's not. Better to have a technocrat. Okay, and then the opposition keeps saying, like for example, talking about Adi Putra, if I'm not mistaken. Adi Putra is an adult, but like we said, like my PM said, we are looking for people with experience, expertise. The only thing he can do math. Okay, he's well known for that. He doesn't even have an SPM, and he's young. How can he have 25 years of experience when he's barely 25 or maybe 28? I'm not pretty sure, but we are looking for those with expertise. You need to understand what the government are saying. It's not about we are being how do I say extra or anything. No, this is the best one. And then you can say, and then they all said, oh, jokes doesn't mean that action were taken. If you can do jokes in the parliamentary, you think they do their jobs? You think if you're a leader, if you yourself a leader, would you want to be seen as a joke? Would you want to be seen as people watching the RTM, the national TV, as a night gag? No, they don't. They want to see, okay, how our leader is working. How are they solving this? Okay? And then they also said about consult. What is wrong with those who are technocrats? Consult more with the other experts. Like I said, surgeons know other surgeons, accountants know other accountants. They will have a better experts. Okay, which means wait. Okay, so for example, important things like this is so mean, but I have to say this. If you say that they are doing their job even though they do jokes, why are we still getting last minute decision? This is not where you want to eat. Oh, McD is it? KFC is it? I don't know. It's not that. We are talking about people. Millions of people. 30 millions of people in these hands and they can't do things. Can you imagine? And this is all because of democracy. You can say anything, but technocrats will certainly make it better. As my DPM said, those childish and weird jokes they do is to invalidate anyone who they seem to like better than them. And those are the things we want to make sure does not happen in the future. Because the youngsters today are the future of the country tomorrow. And with that, I rest my case. Thank you.
Now let us welcome the government whip. Sorry. Thank you, government whip. Please welcome the opposition whip to sum up for the opposition team.
Hi, hello. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, but a little bit low volume.
Hi, hello. Can you hear me? Still low?
Yep, better.
Better. Okay. Let me begin my speech by rebuttal back the argument from the Deputy Minister and Prime Minister. Okay, I will start my argument from 3, 2, 1. Okay, first of all, let me redefine again and again what is democracy means to people that choose their leader and to hold their leader accountability for their policies and their conduct in office. The key role of citizen in democracy there is to participate in public life. Democracy is also a system of rule by law, not by individual. Democracy is not government. It is a way of our thinking and responsibility. In that case, I would like to make sure to recentering our point, which is we wanted to say that we oppose the argument from the both side, from your side, the government side, the deputy and the prime minister, which is why our decision is messed up. Are you trying to imply that democracy is death? I'm gonna restrain my prime minister's speech again. I still second, I still solid, I still like whatever it is, I still like support my leader, which say leader need to be well connected, not for their own benefit, of course. when you say that when they are well resources, they are silver spoon and everything. No, not for this one. Try to be a little bit from the judging. Try to be neutral a bit. Why we can diverse our point of view to something that more neutral rather than suppressing all the disappointment, all the regret and everything. If we just gonna talk about how right our minister is, it can go on and on till tomorrow. You understand this? Frustrating. I agree. I am frustrated too. I am not condoned with what our government is saying or doing right now. But I'm still gonna say that I understand that current situation is just like this. And should we run from the situation or we should fix it? Or should we run or should we choose to fix it? Sorry, I started a bit because I'm a bit spirited. Okay. First of all, I'm gonna say that I am very adored, grateful with Malaysian citizens that actually well aware, well versed with what happened with current condition, just like what Deputy Minister claimed from your side. But you need to understand, we didn't demeaning what you said. It just we all together need to prove the democracy is what we are fighting from the start. We need to prove the old folks minister that they are wrong. With this to concrete my speech, I don't think we should run, but we fix it just like what expertise we can contribute to the country. I'm not saying all specialists should take over the world. We know that we know what our minister are doing. If let's say all the highly looked upon specialist is appointed, let's say lah, your view is correct. I'm not saying that I agree, but I'm saying let's say, okay, we say that let's say they are take over the position, they are take over the government. We know what our minister are doing. If let's say we are sorry, let me get my thought back. If let's say the highly looked upon is appointed, we merely have voice to voice out our wrong. They are wrong because I was thinking that when they are too smart and literally can't ignore our point of bringing the malfunction of the policymaker they made. For me, that the collateral damage that we never think of because we actually vote them to be the prime minister. We vote them to be our government. We must understand when our voice cannot be speak up already, it's become inevitable for us to even voice out. This is nightmare that let's hope it's not gonna happen to us. And then when you say that we should like do the technocracy government, you have to know that with current situation, we need to restore the public confidence in the electoral commission and election process, because this is crucial to a healthy and matured democracy that will be responsive to the interests of all citizens regardless of ethnicity or regulation or religion. But democracy demands more than just election, protection of civil liberties and political rights, the freedom of the press and the right to assemble, checks and balance, transparency and accountability are all as important as the process. This is the fundamental of having a democracy. If what you are saying that democracy cannot be safe at all costs of point, you are perpetuating or connecting that democracy is death in Malaysia. We will begin to see a resurgence of optimism as the underlying shift in political attitude in Malaysia. And we should bring the renaissance for democracy in the nation. Why don't we as a youth generation take a lesson and come back stronger? We become the strong generation and able to turn the table, which older generation is always trying to manipulate and always trying to like doing all the deteriorating things. So another sacred battle that I would like to take control about is
POI.
sorry, let me finish it. In their other side of fence,
Excuse me?
you are disregarding all the rules of the people. In our world, we take into account of every people's opinion. If, like what I said before, if you just let all the pro become the specialist, or all the pro become the minister, we can even say like what's the explanation to read. They can actually manipulating the explanation, and we couldn't even like, oh, probably it's right, because we don't have the authority to say that they are wrong. You understand? So we agree that there are some corrupted leader, chronism, corruption, but corruption exists even in the realm of technocrat anyway. You see where's the point is going, because you are saying that technocracy is fair and square to everyone, but actually corruption is going to happen anyway. When we are working in company, cronyism also already existed. Even the gender role, gender codes, and all stuff still happening. Let leader make the best decision when consulting the field and professional expert. Simply destroying the hierarchy won't help with corruption. It's still bound to happen. Democracy means leaders are appointed by people, not by silver spoon connection. This is what democracy is. Simply lightening the moods doesn't mean you won't take action. No one view this as comedian, as a joke, but they think they are funny. That's all for me. I oppose your argument. Thank you.
I would like to thank the speakers for all the speeches. Now, let's give the government and opposition sides 5 minutes to prepare for the reply speech. Please be aware that the reply speech will be for 4 minutes and no POI is allowed.
Chairperson, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Can I exit for a while? And after this, can you approve if I want to enter?
Yep, sure. What's name are you?
All right, thank you. Nabila.
Nabil. Noted. Dear MFI fellows, please remind that Nabila need to be here after 5 minutes because she's gonna start first as the opposition reply. Thank you.
Hi, I'm sorry.
Uh,
Nabila is not gonna be the reply speaker, but Shabas will be.
Shabazz will
yeah,
be
it's
alright.
me. I'm gonna.
Alright, good. 30 seconds left. Now let us welcome the representative from the opposition side for the reply speech.
Uh, roll call again. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right. Okay. So I'm just I'll just begin my points right now. So I'm just gonna like summarize the whole debate and like just offer a few rebuttals that I saw like the government whip mentioned, but like, with great intention. Thank you very much. But like it wasn't necessarily what we were going up against. You mentioned like for example how uh, field experts or professional experts go and consult other experts. It's not like you can't do that with the current system. It's just introducing another stage to the hierarchy. Leaders can consult field experts, and those field experts can consult other field experts, and so on and so on. It doesn't have to be capped at one stage. And second thing you just mentioned about like the whole point on like silver spoon connections, and I was just like, the whole point of democracy is that people elect leaders by their own choice, and like they don't come to the position of power due to silver spoon connections. But thank you so much for like those comments. I just want to like just focusing on our summaries. Just want to mention like again, uh, decision like putting in field experts doesn't necessarily change the decision making process. It just lowers the hierarchy. The field experts and professional experts are already being consulted. That was well established. Um, and leaders should be individuals who are capable of leading in the first place. These are people meant to who are trained and well experienced in the art of leading. And I want to mention like how the power of appointment and of your leaders and the accountability of those leaders should lie in the hands of the government. Yes, we have seen like not so great results, as you mentioned, with the certain prime minister of Malaysia, which I'm not necessarily going to comment on because I don't necessarily want to mention about a leader who is not part of my country. But also want to talk about like we also had the ability to dispose of this certain individual who wasn't necessarily the best to lead people. And fourth, I wanted to mention like how leaders take in the points of the people and not just the field experts. There's a higher quality of decision making process that goes in. Like the quality of the decision that is taken is at a higher level, and it's not just focused and centered and encompassed within the bubble of the field that they are most related to. And lastly, I just want to mention like corruption is inevitable. It's gonna happen. At least the version of corruption that we see is like the most optimum level of it. I'm no way near justifying corruption, but the thing that we have with corruption is the whole point of like corruption is how the corruption that we have isn't necessarily the worst of its kind. It's probably the most optimized version of it because we live in a society that is designed in a way that corruption isn't avoidable in any way. It's gonna happen no matter what. So it's like we see the results. Yes, they're really frightening. They're really horrible to experience, but at least it's the most optimum version. Which maybe the field expert comes in and he or she is not necessarily well versed in how to make decisions that would impact society and the lawmakers and international governing policies, patents, border control, and all that. They just take into account only the field itself. So, you know, those are just my summary points at the end of the day, and I'd just like to conclude my reply.
Thank you for the speech. Now, let us welcome the last speaker for today's debate to give the reply speech for the government sides.
Very sorry to interrupt. Nabila is currently at the backstage. Can you invite her?
Oh yeah, all right. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you for remind. Whenever you're ready. Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, give me a second. Okay, starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, in today's debate, we have seen both sides of the motion, and what I can conclude is that the opposition side has no means to change. They know that our ministers are corrupted. They know that by staying with the democratic government, we are living in a corrupted government. They know this and they admitted to it. But they have no means to change. They kept going on and on again about should we run or fix. I'll remember this sentence. Should we run or fix? You never told us how you want to fix this. You never told us how you want to fix this. You just kept going on and on again about how good is the democratic government. We should stay. Why should we stay? Why should we stay, ladies and gentlemen? Knowing well enough that this democratic government has already tortured a lot of people. It's to a point where, okay, in our country, we have to it's to a point where the government has failed us, to a point where we have to help each other out. That's why we have #kita jadi kita. That's why. So that's how bad the democratic government has become. So why are you so stubborn to have a means to change? This is a need to change. So if we were to change by having a theocratic government, I'm not saying it's going to 100% be okay. I'm not saying it's going to be 100% better than a democratic government. But don't you want to know, instead of just saying democratic, just stay with this. Don't you want to know that by going with a theocratic government, maybe it's going to be better? Maybe there's a possibility, but then just staying with this democratic government, knowing well enough that it's going to fail at the end. If you stay in the road in the same lane, knowing well enough at the end of the road there's gonna be an accident or you're gonna fall off a cliff, are you just gonna stay in the same lane? No, you're gonna stay in a different lane. Find another alternative. Change. Have a means to change. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, we have to have a means to change. Like my prime minister and my government whip has said, we have the means to change. So this theocratic, if we were to go with a theocratic government, these skillful and experts candidates, they can actually know what they're doing. Like I've mentioned, like my prime minister has mentioned, like my government whip has mentioned about our mechanism. During requirements, these candidates will be chosen to be the finalists, to be the lineups based on the skills that they have for the positions that they will hold in the future. Not just a general requirement, not just saying, you have this and that, you can be a candidate. No, that's not how it works. We are saying that if you have these characteristics, skills, like I said, skills, well skilled, based on not just your experts, but based on this and that, management, leadership as well. You know, we're not going to blindly say, you have a PhD, okay, I'm going to give it to you. No, it's not like that, ladies and gentlemen. We've mentioned this before. You said that corruption is still going to happen. It is currently happening. It is still currently happening. So why not have the means to change? We have tried democratic government. We have tried, and we know that it's a failure. Our previous prime minister is currently being investigated, and he was chosen because of a democratic government. Don't you think that is a red flag showing that we have to change? It's time to change, ladies and gentlemen. So instead of just invalidating, no, theocratic government, no, we just gotta stay. No, that is so ignorant of you to say that. Just to say we just gotta stay. No, that's not how it works, ladies and gentlemen. We need to have a means to change, because I'm so tired of staying in this living situation, knowing well enough that at the end of the day, in the future, it's gonna be a failure. I don't want my kids to grow up in this kind of situation. So that is why the government side has a better argument. We have a means to change. We want to reduce the voting bias that happens because of a democratic government. Because it happens, okay, ladies and gentlemen? So with that, I have never been prouder to go with this motion. Thank you.
Thank you for the reply speech. With that, the debate for this round has ended. Let us give the adjudicators some time to discuss the results. The adjudicators may move to their respective rooms. I ask the participants to please remain in this room.
Hello, guys. We're allowed to talk among each other, right?
Yes, please welcome.
What's up, guys? How you doing? That was
Hey,
great.
everyone is
I,
it's my turn.
is it mine that problem?
Yeah.
What's the problem? Where does the noise come from?
It's done.
From technology.
All right.
Sorry.
Man, Anissa, you spoke with a level of spice, Like I was saying, like, wow, this is a spicy
Girl is on
conversation.
fire.
Like seriously, that was so much flavor.
Wait, what the hell?
I I think Anissa, it's your laptop.
Yeah, it is hers.
Now
Yes,
okay.
yes,
Just
it's yours.
Got your voice?
just unplug it and replug it. That's
Everyone okay now?
Wait,
Alright.
good debate though, guys. You did very well. Not gonna lie.
Wait, the noise is back. I'm sorry.
just use your laptop mic to communicate, Anissa. Yeah.
I think so.
Okay, now it's better. It's fine. Do you guys have any experience in debating? So this is your like second, third tournament?
This is my first tournament. Kalau Anissa, I'm not sure, and my other teammates.
Me too.
First,
Me too,
everyone
to be honest.
Same here, guys. First time.
Nice.
Poor Anissa, she can't talk.
No,
You might want to chat.
but it was good right now while she was delivering the speech.
No, she's really good. I think
Yeah.
Anissa's
Yeah.
really good. The best debater in our team, I think.
Hmm. Yo,
Anna is
don't
the best whip though.
don't spill the tea, man. Don't spill the tea. Hannah's gonna-
But like,
Yeah.
yeah, our team is really good so far. Me though.
Do you guys like no, you're good. Like do you guys have coach like in your campus?
Coach.
Or you guys train among yourself?
Um,
You don't?
um,
So Anissa is the coach.
Oh, she's the coach. Nice.
so
Yeah.
Anissa's the coach.
Again, man.
And
Like
Hannah, is it? Like,
that was so
actually,
spicy
for
on her
ours,
part.
we don't have a coach either. It's fine.
Yeah.
I
Like
see.
I'm having hot and Pringles spice. Like this was my face when she spoke. Like that's what I looked like. Every time she
Shabazz,
spoke.
are you having like a starstruck moment?
Yeah, it was pretty good. Mashallah.
Yeah, you guys were okay though. Actually, it's kind of a hard debate. Actually, to be honest.
Yeah,
actually.
it is.
This whole motion
Like
is
the
actually.
second motion was so easy, and suddenly we go for difficult.
Yeah,
The-
the
the-
second motion is kind of relatable actually to some extent.
Yeah.
I think the first was the worst, the whole thing of a wage gap, because like early in the morning you're going economy, like no, bro, like listen, I need coffee for this. Just no, don't talk to me about funds and stuff like this. I don't want to know about wages and stuff.
Can we have a group photo?
Sure. But I'm not.
Sure.
Alright, I'm gonna take it. But I'm using phone. Who's opening it in YouTube? Because I'm in the backstage, so it will be not full screen.
Oh, I'm not sure because I'm on phone too.
Because life is not the same period as in the YouTube, right? So when we smile in the YouTube, there's no smile.
Oh,
Sorry, I was
understand.
talking the whole time, but nobody listening. I'm actually can screenshot the things and share the photo into the chat. Okay.
Yep, sure,
Perfect.
sure. Thank you so
So
much.
just one,
All
two,
right.
three. Okay, done.
Thank you.
Are we still live?
Yep, we still live
Yeah.
until the final result is announced.
Hey, YouTube. Hey, the 8 people that are
Why do
watching.
you guys keep laughing among each other?
Yeah. Again, I just imagine, like, what if there's like a professional debater just comes on the YouTube and he's like, who are these idiots? Like, why are you even talking?
Aw, let's not put down
Like, I
yourself
could
like
have
that.
I could have done this thing in like 10 minutes. They're taking more than an hour. Like, please, guys, just stop
Nah,
wasting
it's
people's
okay,
time.
man. We learn. As long
Yeah,
as like
everyone
we
starts
learn, we
from
actually,
zero.
yeah.
I
I
can't
mean,
share the photo into the chat.
it's okay.
What
I
should
think
we
you just
do?
send it to the bigger. Can I talk? Can you listen lagi?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Actually, that's much better.
Or you just send it to the bigger group,
To where?
Yeah, I think
to the
the
WhatsApp.
debaters group.
Yeah.
Is it okay for you guys? Okay,
Can
I
you
don't
share?
then
mind.
which one
Can
is
I
the best?
We're live on YouTube right now. I'm pretty sure we've surpassed that level of consent.
Hello, am I in?
Yes, we can hear you.
Right, cool. So, yeah, sorry for taking a while. It was in general, it was a very close debate. So here's how my OA is going to be. I'm going to give you my general feedback. I'm going to give you my verdict. Then I'm going to give you my justification. So let's go on the general feedback first, because there's few things to add. So number one, I think first of all, while most of I think both sides of the debates team able to well analyze on the perspective of a technocratic government, on the perspective of a democratic government. While it's true, most of the analysis were there and are like almost accurate and representing both sides of the government. However, I think there's also need to be an additional context on what if in this both form of the government is adapted in a developing country. So it seems that while it is relevant, you guys giving me example in Malaysia context like Taki Yode, like out of nowhere suddenly I heard side study, out of nowhere suddenly I heard Adiputra, which I don't I'm so sorry, I really don't see what's the correlation with Adiputra. Maybe it's hot, but I don't know whether it's true in this delivery country. But in conclusion with that, having in context in developed country, the argument shift and tends to be different. Your citizen and your people on the ground in a developed country tend to shift differently, and the political spectrum in developed country also behave differently, not just political and also economical situation. While it's true some debater able to successfully establish in the earlier part, however, as it goes through, it doesn't well establish to get it a developing country. So I think that is the one of the downfall that both sides within this debate. So I think first of all, it would be very appreciated if both side debate able to extend this debate on perspective of developing country, because it's definitely very different. If you guys wanted to implement this both sides of the government, that's one. So second, um, this is about argument wise. So while I really appreciate both sides able to come up with a sophisticated and very unique argumentation, here's the problem that I have. I think I believe I have already established this during the judge briefing by saying that the example analysis thing, that if you analyze your argument under an example, please put reasoning. So this is the same thing as I explained this morning. So I think all six debaters have the same issue, that you guys tend to associate your argument with certain example, which to a certain extent doesn't mean anything. So I can give you an example because already later I'm going to give you personal feedback. But however, sometimes it doesn't make sense. So while it sounds relevant to you, but it doesn't sound relevant to the judge, it's very hard for us to see the connection that your argument and your example. So it's very advisable to not do that. More likely, it's advisable for you to come up with your argument and give a reasoning towards your argument within your premise. If you say that technocrats government can come up with a good policy, then give reasoning why they can come up with good policy. If democracy is good for the people, then come up reasoning why democracy is good for its people. Then example is often not just reaffirm with all those reasoning and reaffirm with those justification, or reasoning also moving on to the second level to this comment is the both side also lack of, I think, the most important part of this debate, impacts, because uh I think both sides able to substantiate and tell me why this is important for the nation. I think most importantly is, I think I think the most important part of the stakeholders is definitely the voters, definitely the people on the ground, definitely is the citizen. So I think all two of my panel also agree with me that this debate was lack of impact towards this group of people, because this form of government do significantly change the life of these people, and knowing that both sides fail to impact it well, it's hard for us to be even more persuasive, like why under your word of theoretical government is good for the society or democratic government is good for the society. And if you want to extensiate example, therefore you can put to continue to reaffirm all your argument, give it give an example and illustration why this is going to be good for the people. What are the countries that are actually doing well under democracy? What country is actually doing well in the same principle or concept of technocrats? Like what are the ones that continue to be aligned? Then only then your argument will be very persuasive. And last but not least, response, I think, to a certain extent. So It's not about POI. It's more about like I think there are certain clashes that both sides just wanted to respond in one-liner case. So to the certain extent, it makes certain argument unresponsive, making either side of your team's argument substantiations still like there, like it's not fully brought down. So I think both sides need to try to take down at their best, saying that why this outcome will not happen, and even if it's happened, why it's going to be bad, and taking the worst case scenario, even if this is going to be bad, why our alternative, why even if their outcome is better, why the alternative is going to be worse in our world. So I think all this comparative response needs to be made. And yeah, so moving on to my verdict, on the consensus, we give the win to side opposition under big two clashes. So you can ask your you can ask your panel for personal feedback later on. All of us have the approximate same reasoning, but the way how I see the clashes maybe is different than each other panel. So I advise you all to approach. So let's go to the first clash. But before I move to the clash, let's go to what the argument that wasn't unable to build into clashes, because this is what judges usually call as a wash, meaning that both sides attempt to make a clash, but indirectly no one able to outweigh each other, because both sides didn't fully analyze, both sides didn't do their best to try to attempt why this clash win over another. So on the idea about the political the politics or the concept of leader himself, which one is way more better? Because I think this is where opposition also come in and say, look, a leader is somehow supposed to be well connected, and then this individual is supposed to be very able to be well resources, and then they're able to seek help from other country. So that's one part of the premise one side opposition brings to the table. While government also come in response by saying that, look, we also have the same thing. These people who are also technocrats, who are scientists, who are professors, also have networking, also able to pursue individual, also have like a connection with their friends or associate with other university or some other people able to get fund. So while both sides has their unique way of trying to get resources, get help for other country to help their own country, I don't see which side able to overcome each other. So to the certain extent, this argument came to a wash. That's your first wash. Second wash is about the ability to come up with a policy, because a government says that my bad. Opposition says that you don't need to rely on government, because government, you don't need to rely on, like, government also to a certain extent rely on consulting with expert. Like, even though they are not the best, it's still consult to the expert. So the wash here comes where opposition didn't analyze to me why people in their world or political in their world have incentive to listen to their expertise, because this is what opposition government also claim, because government claim, yeah, look, so, like, I think this is one liner response from Godfrey by saying that, look, these people, why suddenly they wanted to listen, because they do not listen, they come up with a very sudden policy, which to a certain extent I'm unsure what is this sudden policy looks like. Is it harmful, is it bad, I'm unsure. But to conclude with what Goff say, Goff also claimed that leaders under their will also don't listen. So the problem with both of these clashes, I don't see why opposition world leader will more likely to listen to the expert, and also in Goff world, why leader will more likely not listen to their expert. Are they more binded to the voter? Are they more like maybe the rich is a rich part, but that doesn't answer the idea about they don't want to listen to their own expertise, etc. So both sides didn't reason, so that also entirely come into a wash. So what are the biggest clashes that come into this debate? So I think the first biggest clash is about which side able to select the suitable leader to run the country. So let's look at what government bring into the table, which I really appreciate. So number one, government bring into the table by saying that, look, a technocratic government is reliable rather than the previous or democratic government, because they have the ability to come up with a good policy, giving reasons that this individual are skillful, this individual has specific set of knowledge. Things like they have a financial minister, they also have health minister, they also have whatsoever in relative. So I think while these arguments were being relevant, few problems I have in this debate. Number one, this argument assumes that under a technocrat government, they can automatically come out with a good policy. So you giving me reason, that's one part. So the part that you were lacking is why technocrats government have an incentive to come up with a good policy or a better policy to govern their own country, because the analysis was lacking. So that's one part. So even if I were to buy that they able to come up with a good policy, so your best outcome that you have is that this technocrats government able to overthrow, able to counteract with corrupted state, or able to counteract with the corruption. Where is it? Yeah, a corruption government and a useless minister. So I think opposition have already responded to by saying that, look, if your problem is corruption, then basically we can just vote out this particular lead. We can just if your problem is about corruption, especially established in Outwip say, look, corruption is also happening in both sides of the world. You can also have a corrupted technocrat government. You also can have a corrupted democratic government, which to a certain extent there was no attempt for opposition to say why in a technocrat government there aren't any corruption at all. So it's fair for me to reason that it is mutually exclusive. And by biting at their best, they also establish, at least under their work, even if it is a corrupted government, under democracy, you're able to give the power to its people to vote up corrupted government. Because under your world, up also question, certain corporation also have a corrupted system, etc. So under a technical government, they also question how you want to vote, you're able to come up with a good policy. So I think that was that was vaguely an answer until the end of the third speaker. Even if I take it at the best at the reply speech, it also wasn't even answer. Second, the whole idea about useless minister. So under your word, it is true. I see an automatically deduction that you don't remove this minister, but that also fair to assume that the replacement of your particular minister is a relevant minister. So I think the conclusion towards that is that there is no reasoning to tell me how set of skill knowledge is equivalent to good policy making, because this is what opposition also say, that if this minister is like very bad, like Taki, if you want to express, just basically vote them out. At least the power is given to his people. So I think that's primarily on why opposition win on that particular clash, and there was no response by telling us why, to a certain extent, a democratic country is way more a worse country, and like a way more worse country, or maybe why this power given this to the people is somehow irrelevant, is very bad, is going to make policy way more worse under democratic country. That comparative were made. So knowing that opposition able to like make all this comparative better, the first clash win give is to op. Second, which side benefits the voter even most. So this is where I think a unique extension come out in the Deputy Prime Minister, which I very appreciate, and it is a very great argument on the voting bias. Because this is where they bring in. I think it's very special. I think it's a very amazing argument. It says that, look, the reason people will vote the wrong person.
Hi, sorry,
Yeah.
Farhan. We're going to be starting the next roll call soon. Can you wrap
Make it
up a
2
bit
minutes. I'll
faster?
conclude very fast.
All right, great.
All right, make it fast. So, on your voting bias argument, the thing is, it says that sometimes politics will use their bribe, will bribe their people, and this is bad because it's like manipulate people for looking at the long-term policy. Problem is, your solution is assume your technocrat government is benevolent. So, this means that this assume your technocrat government is benevolent, is a good government, which to a certain extent is fair for opposition to slightly question that most of your case argument is on the assertion. So at least in opposition, they're able to come in and question and say, look, right now, as long as the power is given to its people, as long as the government is aware, the government is corrupted, the government is bad, etc., at least the power is given to its people under the principle of democracy to take on those harmful government to a certain extent. So all this particular reason, this is why I give the win to side opposition, and it's also almost the same principle reason with the panel that I have already discussed with. So I'm really encouraged for you to have a panel. Maybe they have a different perspective, but overall they have the same reason as me. So this is how we see the debate. Good luck. Time is running out. If you want, you can just see us personally. You can just get our number from Albert, and we'll share it to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Dear adjudicator, can I ask back about the result? Can you make it clear, because there has been a confusion about the result? Whether
Yeah,
the
I give the
government...
win. I give the win to opposition.
All right, thank you. With that verdict, the motion in a developing nation, THP, a technocratic government over a democracy, is rejected. Thank you to the adjudicators. Now the participants may move to the main room for the further instruction regarding the next round. Thank you to everyone for joining today's session.
Hello.
Yes?